Welcome to Legacy Engineered, the show where smart structure meets lasting success. Join Scott Arden, Chairman and CEO of Controllers Limited, as he sits down with business leaders, top entrepreneurs, and experts to uncover the strategies, stories, and structures that build lasting legacies. And now, here's your host, Scott Arden.
Welcome to Legacy Engineered. I'm your host, Scott Arden, and today we have Lauren Cohen. She's an international lawyer, realtor, investment strategist, best-selling author, and globally recognized business leader of Elevair Global Consulting and Investing Across Borders. Lauren, welcome to Legacy Engineered.
Thank you, Scott. I'm so excited to be here for a variety of reasons, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know you and I met through a finance council that we're both part of, and now you're working with controllers to help our clients when they're wanting to invest across borders or maybe even want to set up something in Canada or other countries. And so
Yeah.
awesome. Wow. Yeah. But well, cool. So Lauren, can you give our listeners a little background on you and how you work with international investors?
So my story is kind of unique. You can't make this you-know-what up. My ex-husband was deported on the way back from our honeymoon. So we went on our honeymoon to Thailand from South Florida. I met him here. He was from Canada originally, from Montreal. And I met him here in South Florida. We went on our honeymoon, and on the way back, they took him, they put him in immigration jail. They expeditiously removed him, and they subsequently deported him. So at the time, that was not the best news I had ever heard, as you can imagine. But if not for that happening, I don't think I would be in this space, in the immigration space now, because it forced me to, I was determined to find a way to avoid this type of fate for others. And I created a streamlined process that I have since been manifesting and refining and developing and coordinating. So I myself am originally from Toronto, and I live here in South Florida, and I help a lot of people do just that: move across borders, invest across borders, create strategies, create businesses, expand, and the list goes on.
Well, there you go. Well, you kind of covered my next question, actually, which was what was that pivotal event that, moved you to do what your why, so to speak?
That is definitely a big pivotal event. I'm also a single mom, so my why is my son, that I have to go pick up, as you know. And
Absolutely.
one more year of picking up, and then I'm gonna have nothing to complain about. So I'll figure something out, though.
He's
You
going to be
know,
able to drive, is what you're saying.
yes, he's 15 now, and he hasn't gotten his learner's permit, but he will. The problem is that you have a whole year between getting your permit and when you can actually drive. So it's not that motivating. I don't know about you, but when I turned 16, and I was in Ontario and Toronto, the minute literally it was a Jewish holiday, and right after services, my grandfather, Oliver Shalom, who was a driving instructor, I made him take me to the test so I could get they called it a 365. And 3 weeks later, I think I had my license, and I was done. I was, so I don't think they're as motivated these days because they have the phones and they have this and they have that, and they have mom to drive them around. So
Right. Well, I know it definitely has changed. When I got my license, obviously, when my son got his license, there's a lot of the requirements have changed. In booking hours, like driving hours and things like that. And so, yeah, 100%. But I totally get it. Totally get it.
To add to that, somebody asked me the other day because I drive a Tesla. They said, "Well, who's going to teach him to drive?" And I'm thinking that's actually interesting because he's going to drive with me, but I'm not teaching him. I'm going to have a driving instructor, but the chances of that driving instructor teaching him on a Tesla is not that high, and it's a different drive. So it really is very different. So it's interesting because I don't use the brake on my car, and he has to learn to brake.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like a whole different way of driving. I had to relearn when I got the car. So I didn't really think about that, but it's interesting because there's so many differences.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So tell me, are most of your clients foreign investors wanting to invest in the US or US citizens wanting to invest in other countries?
So if you asked me that a year ago, my answer would have been definitely the former. Foreign investors investing in the US, getting visas, accessing status, relocating, developing businesses, buying real estate, and so on.
Mhm.
But this year, things have changed drastically, as you and I have discussed. And the shift has been about American companies seeking to expand. people from all over the world seeking to expand all over the world, not just inbound to the US. And so we have partners in multiple countries, literally globally, to allow our clients to achieve their goals. So one of the things I think I pride myself on, and I'm sure you do as well, knowing you as I do, is meeting clients where they are. And with the economic shifts and, COVID changed a lot of things, a lot of because people could now invest remotely and things started being much more global. You can speak on a panel or you can speak at an event in China or in Japan or whatever and not leave your home, which really wasn't a thing before COVID, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I
And
know
I
Zoom
think that
and all
that's
these different digital platforms have
yeah,
kind of transformed the way that we do business, not
exactly.
just over
I
the
mean, look,
phone,
you
but
and
how we can
I,
actually.
we're strategic partners and we have not met in person, but we met through it's kind of like it's like dating. We met through a very reliable source. We met through a council that we're both part of because we're respected business owners, and so it puts us at a different level and opens the dialogue at a different level. I think that COVID opened a lot of those doors, Scott. I mean, really, before that, it was like if you didn't meet in person, there was it wasn't you didn't really have a relationship, right?
Right,
Yeah.
a
So
hundred percent.
yeah. So COVID opened a lot of those doors. Maybe not during when we were struggling, but after. And so I think that that's changed the dynamic. And also, people are much more global thinkers right now. They realize they have to be because if you don't diversify and something happens in your home country or in a country where you're heavily invested, your whole portfolio is impacted. So you need to diversify and think outside of the box.
Right, right. Absolutely. So, from what countries are you seeing most inbound investors to the US? And conversely, where do you see US investors buying outside of the US?
So I'm Canadian. So naturally, I see most of my clients coming from Canada. I think
Right,
9 out of every 10 of my clients are from Canada. But right now, I'm working with some German clients, some French clients, some Italian clients, a few Israeli clients, Brits, South Americans. I mean, you've got, a lot of people investing from Mexico and Colombia, or even Peru and countries where there are political challenges and they want a little more political, I guess we'll call it stability for lack of a better word, although, there are different schools of thought on that. In terms of investing outside of the US, the most common place that I have people asking about is Portugal. Then we've got Spain, we've got Italy, Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico, the DR, um, places where there's opportunity to invest. Certainly, a lot of my American investors are now investing or expanding to Canada to have options, right? But at the
right.
end of the day, it really comes down to what makes sense for you from a political perspective as well as from a financial perspective. So,
So you're
um,
seeing it more as the political versus tax advantaged or more
no, I think it's all
protection,
of
things
them
like that?
coupled together, but people want stability, right? They want their money to be safe. So, um, people are not going to invest in generally speaking, I say this generally, okay, everything I say is generally and not legal advice. People generally want to be a little bit safe. Now, there are some that will take advantage, like of a war-torn country or something. But here's an interesting thing. So Israel, which has been at war for over 2 years now, is a great place to invest because real estate is always, 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 at least what I've seen in the past several years, on the incline. And you can make a lot of money if you invest pre-construction. People politically will shy away from Israel because it has bad press and there's a war. But at the same time, people that have an affinity for Israel might invest there because they feel committed to the land and to building the land, and obviously there's an economic upside. So it really I think every person comes to this from a different perspective. Some people are very short-sighted and narrow-minded. They just want to invest in their backyard, and I don't think that's the smartest thing to do. A woman just reached out to me. I have a lot of people that invest in Jacksonville, and she said, "Well, I don't want to live in Jacksonville, so why would I invest there?" I said, "Well, you don't have to live where you invest."
Right. Right. Yeah, that is a big component, I mean, getting outside of that area, It kind of goes back to not falling in love with real estate, right? It's a
Yes,
business tool.
it is.
And so, when you're talking about, well, I don't live there, well, that's fine. Again, it goes back to don't fall in love with real estate. It's a business tool. It's an asset that is making you money. And so
Yes, that's correct.
100%. 100%. Well, cool. All right. And so here's an off the wall question for you.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. So every journey has its ups and downs. What were some of the early roadblocks you hit? And are there any ongoing ones that continue to shape your path?
So let me address the ongoing ones first, because that's very prevalent right now. So we had I during COVID, well, actually, I guess we'll talk about COVID. So during COVID, nobody was moving. I'm an immigration lawyer. That was my first priority, first and foremost, my core. Nobody was moving. Everybody was shut down. Businesses were shut down. I was like, what am I going to do? So I pivoted and I pivoted and I pivoted and I pivoted again. And what I realized during COVID was there were a lot of real estate investors that were seeking access to the US to get, status, to get visas. And 9 out of 10 lawyers told them it's not possible through real estate investing. So I said, well, that can't be true. There has to be a way for them not to have to buy, and I pick on pizza shops, but a pizza shop, a bricks and mortar company that they don't love and they don't want to run. Like you were saying,
Right.
you can't fall in love with real estate, but you can love what real estate investing does for you. And that's what I found. So I was determined to find a path to access status through real estate. And I created a program called How to Immigrate Through Real Estate. Very successful. Everybody's been through the process. Everybody's been successful, gotten their visa, and building lucrative businesses. Flash forward, change in government. Change in government has had huge, 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 and this is not a political statement, it's a fact, huge impact. Oh, I like that.
Oh, yeah. That's our branded energy drink. Sorry.
Wow. Send me a box. I need those,
Well, okay.
please. So anyway, so a new president comes in. He's business friendly. He's real estate friendly. He's a real estate investor, big time. But as everybody knows, there has been a major, major, major impact on immigration, on all types of immigration. And that has had an impact on the immigration bar, on immigration lawyers, on practicing immigration. So for 8 or 9 months, I was like, uh-oh, like I was trying to shift and change. And actually, that's where our Elevair Global Consulting was born, our fractional services company that we are creating a strategic partnership about, because I realize my strength is in people. My strength is in connecting across borders internationally, and also, of course, in overseeing and managing a lot of the legal processes, developing business plans, developing strategies across borders, so that I can help you think bigger and broader. So that I think that my secret sauce or my superpower is turning adversity, like my ex-husband being deported, into an opportunity, into prosperity. Turning a door into a window, opening the door or opening the window, going through it, finding an opportunity on the other side, and always looking for the silver lining, as my book is called, because there always is one.
Right. Right. Well, and that's, what a lot of people need to think about is even though a door may be closed, you got to think about how a door works, right? It opens and it closes. You just got to make the effort to turn the knob and go, bust through or whatever it is. So
But the
absolutely.
average person doesn't do that. We both know that.
That's true.
The
That is
average
true. It's
person
all
is
changing
just
the
like
mindset.
roll over. Pardon me?
It said it's all part of changing the mindset, right?
Changing the mindset.
Thinking about it what would we say? More opportunity. I mean, in adversity, there's opportunity. And so you've got to really look at that and identify, how can, yes, maybe this thing happened to me, but how can I pivot? Like you said, how can I pivot and make it better for me, better for the outcome, if you will, what
Yes.
have you? So,
Yes.
absolutely.
And
Okay.
then sharing your knowledge, being open to sharing. because it's kind of like, it always reminds me, people are like, oh, well, they're going to have competitors, right? Kind of like McDonald's. Wasn't that the original franchise, so to speak, and the original burger place? And then Burger King came along. Well, I don't see it quite as many Burger Kings, do you?
Not as many, not as
No.
many. I actually saw, I think, a headline that they were going to be closing down quite a few of the shops or the restaurants throughout, that weren't franchisee, if you will, more corporate owned. So, yeah,
Yeah. But it's always about welcoming welcoming competition. A colleague of mine always called it co-opetition instead of competition. And I think that that's what C-Suite Network does really well, is opens those doors, because some people are very closed and they're like, "Oh, you're a lawyer. I'm not talking to you," or you. But I think you and I are very much about collaboration. That's why we're building this strong relationship. And for me, that is the core of my success plan, is collaborating with other like-minded people, professionals, entrepreneurs that think outside of the box, right?
ab- absolutely. I mean, it's adding to the resources of how you can help people, and bring in the right parties
Yeah.
to overcome challenges or objectives within the company. So, yeah, cool. So, with those experience, or how have those experiences shaped the way you lead, work, or approach your business today?
So always with an open mind, and never ever, well, I say never ever, never ever saying never. Right?
That's
It's
awesome.
kind of
Yes.
funny. But you just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And um if when I look back at my life 20 years ago, or 15 or 16, before I had my son, I mean, certainly having a child is a game changer on many levels. I'm a single mom, so um it's a lot of driving, and a lot of driving me crazy, but that's another story. But I couldn't imagine my life any other way. And my mom said, "What are you going to do when he goes to college?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm going to follow him. Like, what am I going to do?" I mean, you know, so I think that the key to anyone's success is to always look at the glass half full, and know that there is an opportunity in spite of how things might seem at this very moment in time. And again, relationships are always going to be the key to success. I think
Correct.
there's no stronger capital. You can have millions and millions and millions of dollars, but if you don't know how to use it, or you don't know how to create those relationships, you're you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. Well, and
Don't
we see
count
that with a lot
money.
of our clients, right?
Pardon me?
I said we see that with a lot of our clients.
Yeah.
They made a ton of money, but they're paying too much in taxes. They don't really know how to protect the assets.
Right.
They, want to create generational wealth, but they're not being given the right information or advice, or, or coaching through that process. That's why, I love working with our clients in that capacity to kind of help guide them, through how to truly utilize their businesses, and then tying it into, as you and I are working together on this, is developing proper business plans, and identifying what KPIs are, and truly understanding how to maximize not only their business but increase their wealth through investing, as you do, across borders, expanding opportunities, so on and so forth. So, yeah, well, perfect. Well, so what would you say is next for Lauren?
Ah, that's a loaded question. Um, so I know that, well, I can't actually exactly say what's next, because I'm in the process of acquiring a business with a colleague.
Right.
And if that happens, it will be another game changer that complements what we're doing on a very significant level. I'm hoping that a part of what's next for me is helping controllers to expand into Canada and eventually other countries, because I love doing that. I really, I haven't utilized my Canadian law license in about 20 years. And this transaction that I'm in the midst of undertaking, let's say, doesn't require me to be Ontario licensed, but I am. And it's a funny story. I pay more money to be a non-practicing Ontario lawyer than a practicing US lawyer. Okay? More
Okay.
money. It's kind of crazy, but it's true. So what I did in the process of this is I said, okay, I'm back in. If you give up, so people, a lot of lawyers that aren't practicing in their jurisdiction, they give up their license completely because they don't want to pay. It's like $1,000, let's say, a year to keep your license, even in inactive status. So people don't want to pay, and they're like, I'm not, why bother? I always thought, and this is again thinking forward, right? I always thought to myself, what if there's that time when Scott needs you to do Ontario stuff, when there's an opportunity to buy a business that can bring a lot of lucrative opportunities with your Ontario license? Why did you go to law school for those years? And now you're going to give that up because you're not there. So I always kept that door open. There you go. And now two weeks ago I called them up, or I went online. I didn't call them. I went online, I changed my status, I paid them a few dollars, and I'm like, here I am, I'm back. That's it. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's time to really go back to the core of what makes me tick, which is really helping companies scale and grow internationally. Really helping companies access opportunities, like you said, protect their assets as they're growing, making sure that they have the right pieces in place so they're not paying the IRS or the Canada Revenue or anybody. I mean, why? Why do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I heard, they're making some big changes over in the UK, which is why a lot of people are like, "Oh, what am I going to do with my US assets? What am I going to do?" And that's where building this relationship, we can work with my clients, I can work with your clients, to really design a strategy that's going to be beneficial for them,
Correct.
right? And so, yeah, that's exactly perfect. Okay. Well, so here's another one.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I didn't get these questions in advance.
I know,
I should
I
have been
know. That's what
prepped.
makes it fun.
Oh
That's
my
what makes
gosh,
it
I'm nervous.
fun.
Okay. I hope I'm getting an A so far.
Yes, you are. You
Because
absolutely
otherwise, I'm out. I don't take anything less than an A.
are. So, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I only have one child and I really am a solo parent, and uh, I'm always working. Um and like a lot. Like I work too much. And I think that the legacy I want to leave behind is a drive to have an impact, to always do things with a view to who am I impacting?
Right.
Because, kids are very narcissistic, right? It's always about what's in it for me. Oh no, mom, I'm busy doing this and this and that. Well, think about the other person. Um, I'm very involved in philanthropic work. So yesterday I said to him, my son, I said, we're going to volunteer at a golf tournament for this thing called One Israel Fund next week. He goes, make me. Now he was joking, but he said it with that to make me. I said, don't you worry, I will.
Oh yeah.
So, he was in private school, my son, until now. And it was a different environment because in public school, they're not as much about giving back as the private school was. They had to do a certain number of community service hours and da da da. But I am. And so that impacting people in your business, impacting people in your kindness, impacting people in your gestures and your mitzvot, which is gestures of kindness or giving back, charity. Uh, all of this is an important part of my life and our life. And I want to make sure that my son and people around us know, and especially he knows because he lives in Boca. I mean, it's not exactly a place like when I got my first car, I was thinking about this as I was driving to school today, and some kid was driving beside me like a crazy kid in an Audi. And I'm like, 16 years old, he has an Audi. My
Right.
kid's going to have my car. When I first drove, I don't know about you, Scott, I drove an old station wagon, and I used to drive and park it far away from school because I was so embarrassed. And in retrospect, I think to myself, I had a car.
Absolutely. Whether
Then,
it doesn't have to be a fancy car, but it gets me to and from and gets me to do, I personally drove a 1984 Chrysler LeBaron.
there you
It
go.
was maroon in color, and the interior was that maroon kind of
Oh, yeah.
felt,
One of
so
those like tanks, right? A V8 or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, big 4 door. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't one of the boats. I didn't need a
Right.
docking
Oh,
permit
okay.
for it, but it wasn't the most flashiest car. But what that did was that gave me the drive to that got me to a job, right? I was a prep cook at one
Wow.
of the restaurants on the coast, and that led to, me kind of building it up and then getting the next car that I wanted. But it gave me that drive to say, okay, well, this gets me to where I need to go, and
Yeah.
but I can step up to the next level. So,
Well,
yes,
I'm guilty then because I'm going to give my son my car, but it also because it's safe. But the truth is that in with Teslas, you pay almost double for insurance. So just the insurance payment alone is going to be like I'm like, you got to start saving, kid, because you're not going to be able to afford this. There's no chance for a 16-year-old. No.
right.
Anyway,
Well, well, awesome. Well, Lauren, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. This has been an awesome conversation, a fun
yeah.
conversation. In closing, is there anything that maybe people don't know about you that you'd like them to know about you?
I'm a risk taker. I think that's something I would like people to know. Um, Yeah, and I think it's being able and willing to take risks, calculated risks, not stupid risks. I don't jump out of airplanes. I don't do bungee jumping, those kind of things. But in business, you have to be willing to go after the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. You have to be willing to put yourself on the line and be out there in order to get where you want to go. And don't try to get there without some destination in mind. Like you can't just go like this. You have to
Absolutely.
have a GPS to get there. You may have shifts because things do happen and be prepared for that, but always begin with the end in mind.
Absolutely. Stephen Covey, right? Begin with the end in mind, have a clear vision of where you're going and how you're going to get there. So that's perfect. That's an awesome insight. And, like I said, I appreciate you
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show, for what we're building as a collaborative,
Yeah,
partnership here.
absolutely.
And so I know you got to go get your son. So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to
It's
let you
exciting
run.
stuff. And maybe you'll come back in a few months once we have made a huge impact together for a whole ton of clients and we can have an update.
Perfect. Yeah. I would love to do that. Would love to do that.
It's
Well,
a pleasure,
awesome.
Scott.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day,
Thank
and
you.
we will be talking soon.
Thanks for listening to Legacy Engineered. For more episodes and to connect with Scott and the team at Controllers Limited, visit controllersltd.com. You can also follow Scott on Instagram and LinkedIn and start building your legacy with confidence today.